You have been throwing games away by not picking the best defender in the world. We all have, really. This Pokemon has been slept on nearly all season long, and then on the biggest stage when the lights were the brightest, this Pokemon took over the spotlight. The World Championships for Pokemon Unite have just wrapped up. Many what people thought to be the top meta defender picks performed quite poorly outside of Ho-Oh. Snorlax had just a 41% win rate. Umbreon, not that much better. 42% win rate. And Mamoswine, you're starting to go in the wrong direction. An abysmal 36% win rate. However, this defender pick rose to the occasion and certainly wasn't absent from play. Crustle was finding massive play after massive play throughout the entire tournament when picked. Over the past few months, we've had a handful of patches updating stats, moves, and the like on various Pokemon. Defenders have been in quite a rough spot in the meta outside of a few select picks. Timmy has slowly been implementing defense and special defense buffs to these defender Pokemon to kind of help them rise in the meta and allow them to thrive in their designated role. Looking at the past few tournaments, there are only really a couple defenders that are picked consistently. Snorlax being enemy number one. It's been picked in almost the top spot in almost every of the last 3 months of tournaments. It's very consistent. Lapras, to some extent, it was picked up in regionals a little bit here and there. Umbreon is kind of a weird one because it flexes sometimes in a supporter, but it's still quite good despite getting some nerfs. And then Ho-Oh had a very recent update to its kit, and teams are starting to pick it a lot more. Outside of that, top tier defender players are picking everything except defender class Pokemon. Suicune, Psyduck, Mr. Mime, and even Hoopa are being picked up by those defender players because of the poor performance on a lot of those defender class Pokemon. So how did this crab come out of its shell during this tournament? Well, we have to do a little bit of a backup a couple patches ago, where there was a detrimental bug, not its typing, to Crustle's arguably most valuable move, Rock Tomb. For a few weeks, including some more recent tournaments where we thought Crustle would have some play, Rock Tomb was allowing opponents to walk through that Rock Tomb wall, which completely defeats the purpose and the utility that that ability provided. So unfortunately, we did not see Crustle in big tournaments for quite some time. Luckily, in the U-Impact Part 1 patch that was released on July 18th, the Crustle fans all celebrated. Okay, that's the last one, I promise. They celebrated because the bug had been fixed. Let's talk about how it performed during the tournament. Well, Crustle was not picked a ton, but when it was picked, it looked unstoppable at times. It was picked in nearly 15% of the games and had a 55% win rate. Not too bad considering the stats of all the other meta defenders, so overall, not crazy numbers, but it looked very good. On the main stage in featured matches, this Pokemon shined the absolute brightest. Luminosity Gaming utilized it to perfection in Game 3 versus Peru, and won off an absolutely insane engage from Luminosity's defender player Slashcan to help secure the Rayquaza. However, Peru seemed to be the biggest Crustle believers as they took this in both the semifinals and in the grand finals with great success. In a winner-take-all game number 5, versus Luminosity, they picked Crustle, which proved to be a pivotal part of taking Rayquaza by zoning out trainer LGC's Leafeon from being able to secure a flip on the Green Dragon. Then, in the Grand Finals versus Zeta Division on stage at Anaheim, Peru decided to pick Snorlax as their tank of choice in Game 1. Unfortunately for them, they lost a very contested game. After losing that game, it was time for Draken to bring his ace to the table. Crab was on the menu. Okay, that is the last one. They got off to a quick start in game number 2 and did not look back, carrying a large lead into Rayquaza. Just when Zeta Division thought that they were going to knock out Draken and move to Rayquaza, he survives punishment from Charizard and then hit a massive 3-player X-Scissor with some follow-up damage from the damage dealers, along with a Blissey Unite, helping send Charizard, Clefable, and Blastoise to the Pokemon Center, with the Suicune shortly following. With Suicune available later on, on, Peru elected to take that in their defender/tank slot and still won that game number 3. But in a decisive game 4 with the championship on the line that could crown them the world champions of Pokemon Unite for the first time for LATAM, Draken once again pulled out the Crustle. Early on, Crustle started to steal the show, landing several crucial stuns and setting up large KOs for the damage dealers. Zeta Division, being the tough opponent that they are, were not going to go down without a fight. They clawed their way back off of the trusted Leafeon pick that won every game in the set prior to this one. However, near the 340 mark of the game, Zeta Division got their hands caught in the cookie jar. They think that they're going to start snowballing the game after they pick off a Nemo on Scyther. Draken was able to flip the Uno reverse card and pop the Rubble Rouser Unite move, allow the Rocky Helmet to do some work and hit a 4 KO, keeping Peru alive and in the driver's seat. The clock hits 2 minutes and Rayquaza appears during the final stretch. Zeta Division makes the first move with a heavy slam from Snorlax, but that's exactly what Draken and Peru wanted. After a bit of damage from a uniting Garchomp, Peru decides to space out to ensure minimum damage, especially with no healer on their side. Draken spots the engage from the Galarian Rapidash. He then hits their Unite move and an eject button to hit the largest and most important Rubble Rouser of his life, stunning Tomei and Rom, sending them both to the Pokemon Center before Blissey could even respond with their Bliss assistance. From there, the rest of Zeta Division, outside of Vitopo on the Leafeon, fall down. Leafeon makes a valiant effort, KOing a Nemo Scyther with an Emerald 2-step, but once again, in the brightest of lights, the biggest of stages, the most important moment, Draken and Peru put their trust in the crust, and it did not disappoint, securing Rayquaza and crowning them the first ever Pokemon Unite champion of the LATAM region. Now, what builds were popular for Crustle during this tournament? What builds were played? Since only a handful of teams either played it on stream or on the side stage, we have minimal data, but from what we saw, teams overwhelmingly selected Rock Tomb and X Scissor. This is the ability set that is most true for Crustle to be a true defender. It provides a lot of utility. The other ability set, not necessarily as defender-ish, so in competitive play, you don't see that very frequently. Now, as far as items go, EXP Share was used exclusively to assist with enabling levels for the team. Plus, since Crustle evolves at level 4, it does not often get level locked. Focus Band was also used in almost every team's build. Focus Band allows Crustle a little bit more defensive bulk, plus an essential second life when getting to low HP during those big team engages. The final item was often changed depending on the draft and depending on the player piloting the crab. Some teams elected for more shielding and support with Buddy Barrier. Resonant Guard was also popular, since it does give frequent shields to itself and a nearby ally. Another great perk of Resonant Guard is for information gathering, with Rock Tomb being a ranged projectile. When it connects to an opponent, the Resonant Guard shield procs. This allows for your team to check tall grass safely and to avoid ambushes. But the winning build ignored Buddy and Resonant Guard for a bit more battling. Rocky Helmet was the selection for this squad. It allows for more defense, but the big perk of this item was the return or the revenge damage that it dishes out during those team fights. Why did Crustle work? It's a great question. Crustle has a decent early game, and since the early game is incredibly crucial to helping your damage dealer scale, Rebel has a couple crucial tools in its kit to enable early capture of contested wild Pokemon. Rock Slide can help stun enemies right before securing, and Fury Cutter can help close the deal. The other thing that makes Crustle work so well is that Crustle has a lot of hindrances in its kit. Both Rock Tomb and X Scissor offer a lot of stuns and traps for damage dealers to follow up on. Peru and other teams that utilize it have amazing speedsters or other damage dealers that can truly capitalize on those traps. And for Peru, it was Anemo, it was Tempo and Zinus, and for Luminosity Gaming, who also use it a little bit, Trainer LGC, Overlord, and Kyrios. Some of the best in the business to ever do it, and I love that Crustle was picked because of just the amount of frustration that it's caused me playing against it on the ladder. It's a little bit justified, I think. So you want to take Crustle into your ranked environment now. Here are some strengths and weaknesses, or I guess mostly strengths, along with some tips and tricks to help you win some of your ranked games. Save your abilities in the early game. Rock Slide and Fury Cutter are absolutely great abilities in that early pathing phase. Save that Rock Slide to stun the enemies, to enable your damage dealer to secure, or secure it yourself with Fury Cutter. This will help make sure you evolve as soon as possible, as well as your lane partner. Set up walls and look for follow-up damage. X Scissor stuns the opponent for 1.5 seconds if the third hit pins them against a wall. This includes both in-map walls along with Rock Tomb walls. The 1.5 seconds, that is one of the longest stuns in the game. If you're able to hit this at a crucial team fight, especially if your damage dealers can capitalize, it'll allow you to win a lot of team fights. And I think some of the biggest tips here are look for that X Scissor when you're close to a wall. Obviously, you can hit an X Scissor whenever, but try to do your best to try to pin them against the wall, because 1.5 seconds can be the difference between your damage dealer coming off of cooldown and be able to follow up with a big range damage, or maybe a speedster with an execution ability. Another one, save your eject button for potential surprise attacks with the Rubble Rouser Unite move. And that is, to me, one of the most fun Unite moves to say. I love that one. That one's gotta be up there, right? Like top tier Unite move name, Rubble Rouser, great. In critical team fights in competitive play, you'll often see players trigger the Unite move and then eject into opponents. This will stun them when those rocks explode. This not only stuns the opponents for 1 second, but if the opponent then deals damage to Crustle, revenge damage is applied to that opponent. So it's a great way to kind of trap an enemy Pokemon in a big team fight. You could kind of pair that with an X Scissor into a wall if possible. So look to use that in a very setting up an ambush type of way. Watch for enemy cooldowns. For highly mobile targets, specifically ones with dashes in their kits, watch when they utilize them. Then try to trap them in harm's way with that Rock Tube. It's a great surefire way to maybe set up yourself for a KO or even your teammates with some follow-up damage. This will either force the enemy to use the eject button or in a lot of cases, accept their fate all the way back to the Pokemon Center. Where experience share. Last but not least, please, for the love of God, wear experience share. There's an unlimited amount of discourse around this item, and I'm of the belief that if you're playing a defender or supporter, this should always be on. Unless your attacker is wearing it instead because you're a scaling defender and your attacker doesn't necessarily need it. But either way, 1 XP per path should almost be required because of how broken this item is. Crustle does not need to scale to provide the value, and you're honestly better off enabling a damage carry to follow up on your engages than doing a little bit more damage yourself. Well, that is it. After Worlds, it's in Crust We Trust. The 2024/25 Unite Championship Series season is over with, done and dusted. Next season will be starting way sooner than we think, at the very latest during LAIC in November. Let me know in the comments, what Pokemon do you think is going to make a surprise impact in the next big Pokemon Unite tournament? And as always, thank you for stopping by and watching the video. Please, if you like this content, drop a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it, as I am trying to bring more unique content and breakdowns and spotlight to the competitive scene, because I think what everybody does as a player, the casters, like every part about Unite Esports is so hype, and I just want to bring more spotlight to that to the general community. But that is it. Until next time, trainers, we'll see you then. Also, wait, no, look at this. Toad School. Sorry, I had to show this off. Look at the Toad School sweater that I got from the Pokemon Center at Worlds. Worlds has the best merchandise. Okay, now for real, until next time, traders.